Welcome back to my garden. You guys are doing great today. In this session, we're going to talk about how to prune our plants so that they produce the most fruit. Everything that we've been talking about in this conference is about how to help our plants be grown up and be strong so that they can produce good fruit. In other words, we want a good yield from this garden. We want to see fantastic things come out from the lives of our children as well. We want to see them grown, walking with the Father in His Torah, obedient, and shining great examples with great reputations in the community. That we want them to have themselves godly children that are raised up. We want to see happy homes and strong marriages. This is some of the fruit that we are expecting. Now, it doesn't just happen. Sometimes you have to prune those tomato plants. We found out that some of the reasons that we had some aphids and bugs and a little bit of moldy problem is because we were not pruning our tomato plants, some of our squash. We were not keeping them up and out of the dirt. We were not plucking off those little baby leaves that are down at the bottom, but we were just letting it be all natural. And that all natural didn't really bring very much fruit. It's much better this year now that we've learned to prune a little bit. So we're going to go to Hebrews 12, verses 7 through 11. Kind of controversial passage, but it says, "If you endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten? If you are without chastening, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Furthermore, we had human fathers who corrected us, and we paid them respect. Shall we not much more readily be in subjection to the Father of spirits and live? For they indeed for a few days chastened us as seemed best to them, but He for our profit, that we may be partakers of His holiness. Now no chastening seems to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterwards it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." Now, according to that last verse, verse 11, it kind of clarifies what chastening is. I mean, I don't need to get too specific on video. You can use your imagination. There are all kinds of creative things that you could do to chasten your children. But it says in here that it is not joyful for the present, but painful. In other words, this is something difficult and hard that you're going to introduce into the life of your child to help train them, to pull off the bad fruit. It says in Proverbs 22:15, another verse that is somewhat controversial, but it says, "Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will drive it far from him." Now, foolishness being bound in the heart of a child means that a child is not born with wisdom and understanding and knowledge, the things that build a beautiful home. Instead, it says clearly in this verse that foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. It means all children are born that way, and I know these are controversial words, but what does it say will drive it far from him? The rod of correction. I don't know what the rod of correction is. Maybe it's a gentle nudge with a rod. It doesn't necessarily mean spanking or things like that, but it does say back in Hebrews that whatever it is not joyful for the moment, but it's painful. So that kind of clarifies what correction and chastening looks like for our children if we want to get that heart of foolishness to depart the scene and to make it gone from our home. Proverbs 13:24 says, "He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly." He who leaves the little yucky leaves at the bottom of the tomato plant on there hates the garden. But he who plucks them off loves all the good fruit that comes from the garden. And you have to nurture a plant. You have to give it proper water and food, but you also have to prune off the bad things in order to make more fruit and to make the plant healthier. Proverbs 29:17, it says, "Correct your son, and he will give you rest. Yes, he will give you delight to your soul." I don't know why in our culture we have been deceived into thinking that it's bad for a mom to discipline and correct and use a rod and chasten or any of these, punishments that may not be very fun. Why is that considered a bad thing? The Bible says that if you will do those things, if you'll correct your son, he will give you rest and he'll give you delight to your soul. And who's right? The Bible or the world? Whose advice are we going to take? Now, I think I need to clarify. And it says in Colossians 3:21, The fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. So discipline and chastening is not beating up the tomato plant so that it will become discouraged and fall over. That is not. This is a loving and kind way of disciplining, noticing the bad things that are coming out of a plant and plucking them off before it's too late. And we already talked in a previous session about how pleasant words promote instruction. This is not instruction, though. This is when something bad has come out of your child and you need to correct it. Correction and instruction are two entirely different things, and I'm not saying that you should have a pleasant and happy tone when you're correcting. I think that you should have a firm and sharp tone that says, no, that is a sin and we are not going to do it anymore. We're going to get rid of that. Then as soon as the correction is done, go back to the pleasant words and instruction. Return that house as quickly as possible back to peace. Now, I'm going to give you some ideas here for a few minutes. First of all, I'm going to start with toddlers, okay? And by toddlers, I'm going to define this as, say, 12 to 15 months. With my children, I noticed it happening a lot around 15 months, that suddenly they needed to be corrected a little bit more. And it feels like to me that it goes up to about 36 months. So a little over a year, around 15 months or so, give or take, and about 3 years old. This is what I'm calling a toddler. And here are some things that you're going to want to be watching for and some ways to prune off the bad behavior. First of all, expect a response. From a 15-month-old, yes, when you give a command or say to do something, you should expect a response. You're looking for eye-to-eye contact. So when you speak, the child looks at you. All right, and that's really easy to train in a young child. You can just take their little chin and move them to look at you and say, look at mommy. Okay, as a child gets older and is able to speak, you're going to ask them to say, yes, mommy, when you say to do something. All right, but for a young child, just go for the eye contact. That's the first step. You're going to, secondly, give instructions, not suggestions. You're not suggesting, hey, honey, would you like to do this? Or, let's go get a drink. Okay, that's a suggestion. No, instruct. Say, it is time to do this. It is time to do that. You can change the tone of your voice. It's not, would you like to do this? But we're going to do this now. It's all about the tone of voice. So give instructions, not suggestions. Third, the child at this age really, really craves and needs consistency. They need to know what's expected. Don't constantly move the boundaries. What is expected? When the child sits on your lap, what is expected of them? Do you want them to fold their hands? I mean, this is a skill they have to learn, but they can learn it pretty young. What is expected in a store? At one time, are they allowed to touch everything and run around, but another day you're tired, so you make them sit in the grocery cart while you push? They're not going to like that very much. Be consistent. Make it the same every time. What are the rules? Have you thought it through? In a previous conference, we had a whole long session with Katie Hearn, my friend, and she did a long thing about family rule book. But at this age, 15 months to 3 years old, I don't know that we talked that much about it, but really you just need to think about your day and what are the rules in your house for that child? What are they allowed to touch? What are they not allowed to touch? Where do you want them to go? Where are they not allowed to go? And be consistent so your child knows what to expect. I hate constantly moving boundaries. Grown-ups hate it, so do children. You need to direct them as to what they should be doing and restrict them from what they should not be doing. This means that you are in charge and you need to clearly tell them what is expected. Direct them to good things, what you would like them to do, and restrict them from what you do not want them to do. Again, you've thought it out, right? So now you're going to consistently give them direction and restrictions. And finally, start to give them Torah instruction. This is what it's going to sound like. Honey, be kind. No, don't take that. That's stealing. See how those are instructions from the Torah? I didn't give a lot, just a short little thing, just the very beginnings of Torah instruction, so that the reasons that you're asking your child to do something come from the Word of God and not from your own knowledge. The second group of people, the second bunch of kids are preschoolers. And I'd say this starts at about 3 years old until they're starting to learn to read. That's my definition of a preschooler. At this age, you're going to make sure that you give correction. If their behavior is not aligning to the standard that you are asking for, then you need to correct the behavior. So if a child is crazy goofy and wound up and not sitting still, and that is not the standard behavior you were expecting from your child, then you need to physically take your child and put them in a chair and say, sit in that chair. It is time to calm down. Okay? You need to correct the behavior. The child is still small. You can do this. You don't just allow the bad behavior and yell at the child and say, hey, get over here. No, Mom, Dad, get off the chair, get off the couch, and get up and physically correct the behavior by putting them where you wanted them to be. Okay? Think to yourself, their behaviors. Are they accidents or are they being defiant? Because there's an entirely huge difference between the two. A child that makes an accident, spills milk, or accidentally breaks something, or didn't know that they weren't supposed to do something that you think was awful. Have you ever had a 3-year-old use a word that's not appropriate, but they didn't know? If it's an accident, that's not defiance, and you don't need to chastise or punish because they didn't do anything wrong. It's your fault for not having let them know that it was wrong. It was an accident, or sometimes it's just literally an accident. Spilling milk is not wrong. It's inconvenient. It makes a mess. It's going to change the schedule of your morning, and now you have to clean it up. But they didn't do anything wrong. It was just simple childlike behavior. But there is a difference between defiance, when you have specifically instructed and taught, and you know that the child, not only that you taught, but that they understood what you were saying, and then they refuse to do that, is defiance, and it must be chastised. Next, give an explanation for the behavior, and this is by 3 years old. By 3 years old, children are starting to say that famous word, why? When your child says why, you know they're old enough to understand the reason. And it doesn't mean that you have to give them, you're not required to give them a reason. They just need to obey. But for a child that is starting to become characterized by obeying, be sure you don't forget to give that reason why. You don't say, don't splash in the tub. No, you say, we don't splash in the tub because that water could splash out and harm the wood on the floor. Or we don't splash on the tub because it makes the floor slippery and someone could fall and hurt themselves, and we want to show love. Or we don't splash in the tub because Mom is tired tonight and she does not want to have to clean this up. Or, uh-oh, we splashed in the tub. Here, let's grab a towel together and clean it up. Here's the reason why. So that Mommy doesn't have to do it when she's so tired. We want to show love to Mommy, right? I bet money that child will run out of the bathroom and give Mommy a big hug and tell her all about the ways they cleaned it up because they love her. I can just imagine how adorable that would be. So this is the age, around age 3, that you want to start giving explanations for behavior, and don't stop. Do it all the way to age 20 and probably the rest of your life with your children. Constantly discussing. This is what the Torah says about, discussing His commands with our children. When we lie down, when we rise up, when we're walking along the way, when we go to bed at night, when we're eating breakfast, when we're driving in the car, when we're going to the store, when we're at Grandma's house, constantly giving explanations for behavior. Okay? If your child, 3 and up, offends someone or hurts someone's property, okay, they need to learn to apologize and make restitution. Now, how do we apologize? And you can teach your child this. You say, Grandma, will you forgive me? I broke this. That thing that was broken cost Grandma some money. Now, I know Grandma good enough to know that she's going to say, it's okay. It's no big deal. I would probably do that too. But according to the Torah, and I'm going to put the verses here, it's from Exodus chapter 22. We are to make restitution when we have harmed someone else's property, even if it was an accident. Okay? We didn't do a sin necessarily, but we did harm somebody. Okay? So we say to the child, my goodness, that thing that we just broke of Grandma's, that cost a bit of money. I think we're going to have to do some jobs and earn some money and work it off. Okay, now a 3-year-old is not going to have the capability of doing that as much as a 15-year-old, but a 3-year-old can learn to do some jobs to lovingly make it right. To not only say, will you forgive me, I was wrong, but to also pay back what was broken. We need to learn to respect the property of others. Don't let your child go running into someone else's house and opening up all the cabinets and breaking things and eating food wherever and making a stain on the carpet, or just mistreating someone's house, or whatever it is that belongs to someone else. If that happens, you need to teach your child to respect that person, and think ahead so that something doesn't get broken, and then we have to work really hard to make restitution for that. Also at this age, think to yourself, will this punishment that I'm giving the child help them to learn, or am I just trying to get even with them? I'm going to go back to the spilled milk. Some days when you told your child to settle down and they're being rambunctious, and they're not being necessarily defiant, but they weren't actually sitting still either, or maybe they're just sleepy and they spilled some milk. You're mad. You can feel your anger coming up the back of your neck. You're just ticked off. This was the last thing you needed this morning. Ugh. And so you punish your child to get even with them. No, the punishment from a good father is, let me go back to what it says in Hebrews. It says, for our fathers indeed for a few days chastened us as seemed best to them, but he for our profit, that we may be partakers of his holiness. The reason that you're chastening your child or punishing your child for whatever behavior is not to get even or to make them sorry, but for their benefit. It's to help them learn so that they won't repeat that mistake and get hurt in a worse way. If you're constantly thinking to yourself, how can I profit and benefit my child? What kind of a punishment could I give them that would actually help them learn? Then you would not be abusing them. You would be doing it in a way that would be for their benefit and you love them. And that's the reason that you're doing it. And so it helps you to be a little creative sometimes too with the kinds of things that you might do. Not just react out of anger, just whack them. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about thinking through what would be the kind of thing that I would do to help them understand the gravity of the situation. So now let's go up to a child that's probably getting ready to learn to read, 5, 6, 7 years old. And at this age, I want to say something that I kind of feel is a very important principle for parenting. And that is that preventing problems is better than punishing for problems after they happen. Always be thinking prevention. How could I prevent my child from getting wound up in the first place? Maybe they need more sleep. Maybe they need a snack. Maybe they need to have some quiet time reading. Maybe my child has too much freedom and I am causing a problem. Maybe I could prevent that problem by maybe putting a little bit more restrictions on their time and some more suggestions on how to be constructive with their time. As we said before, the punishments at this age definitely need to fit the crime. Don't just react out of emotion, but think through what is a punishment that fits the crime so that it will profit them. Don't give your child at this age too many reminders. This child is older, all right? This child is already at school age. And 5, 6 years old, your child does not need to be reminded every single day to make his bed. By this point, you've taught your child how to make his bed. You've asked your child to make his bed every morning when he gets out of bed, put his dirty clothes in the laundry hamper before coming to brush his teeth. So why do you need to remind your child every day? If you have to remind your child to do good behavior every day, you're starting to border on the area of this child thinks he knows better, or this child isn't listening, or this child is not showing respect. So make sure that you don't give a bunch of reminders. Expect behavior and give consequences if they don't do it. At this age, you also want to teach your child how to have the right attitude when they're obeying. And this is how you would do it. If your child maybe stomps off to do something, you might have some consequences. But at the end of the consequences, you might say, now, honey, next time, instead of doing it that way, try this. And maybe you didn't even get to the point of stomping off. Maybe your child is just pouring the milk out in the kitchen, and the way they're doing it, you can predict there's going to be a spill coming. So you might say, instead of doing that, try this. Now we come to teenagers. And at teenagers' time, again, don't give reminders. Give suggestions and give lots of coaching from the sideline, but you expect that they know how to behave by this point. You might say, like, I know Dad gave you some jobs to do. Do you have the freedom to go out with your friends? Because maybe they came to you and said, I'd really like to go to my friend's house. You're like, well, don't say, did you mow the lawn? No, don't say, did you do the dishes? Say, I know Dad gave you jobs to do. Do you have the freedom to go do that? Help them learn to think through their decisions and make sure that they are the right decisions based on what they are supposed to be doing. This is what I mean by coaching from the sideline. You wouldn't tell a football player out on the field every single move to do, but you might remind them. Now remember, we just ran that play. What would be a good play to run next? And help coach them through. Loss of privileges is often a fantastic way to chastise for a teenager. It's most effective because at this age, they do understand what it feels like to have some freedoms. Freedoms to go, freedoms to do, and freedoms to make decisions. And if they have not shown responsibility, then it is perfectly appropriate to take away some of those freedoms and lose the privileges. But make sure at this age you also have some time to discuss with them why it is that you did it. Don't allow them to talk back to you, definitely. Make sure that they are having not only an obedient action, but an obedient attitude. But it is okay to have long conversations. Sometimes not in the moment when all the problem is happening, but later or before a problem happens, like when you see a problem coming down the road, stop everything and have a conversation. If at all possible, pull out your Bible and have a conversation that's based on the Word of God. Ask questions, get them to think. Don't just tell them. Say, so what do you think would be the right action? Do you have a Bible verse for that? Would you like me to help you find a Bible verse? Okay, let's look at Proverbs this, this, and this. Okay, so you read the verse. What do you think it's saying? You see how I'm talking? So now, let's not flip that. Don't talk to your 3-year-old like that. 3-year-olds, just direct them. Direct them and restrict them. High school students, coach them from the sidelines. Help them to think through decisions and come to a wise decision on their own. They're almost adults. So it's very different between the two. I think this picture that I have up on the screen right now of a funnel is the best illustration I've ever heard. It's not original with me. I heard it from other parenting classes and so on. But this funnel means that when the child is small and does not have much wisdom and knowledge and understanding, then they don't need to have very much freedom. Don't let them make too many choices. Prune off the bad decisions quickly, because there aren't going to be very many decisions that they make that are bad. So it'll be very easy to spot them if you're not giving them too much freedom. If you're giving them too much freedom, this is going to be really hard. But as a child learns to move properly in the world and function properly in a wise and understanding and knowledgeable way, then you can increase the freedoms and make them larger and give them a little bit more room to make mistakes and a little bit of more freedom to have to think through their consequences and what will happen. And I want to say, even with all of this chastising and pruning and punishing and restricting and ordering and all of these things, that this should be a home filled with peace, not yelling, a home filled with joy and singing and thankfulness and all of the things that we've been talking about all day. I don't think that the majority of the work in a garden is spent pruning. It's just a really quick job that we do only when we notice a problem, as soon as possible when we see the problem. And then we get back to the normal purpose of life, which is to produce good fruit. We're going to talk about that next.